You dirty birdie. What is it, you dirty birdie?
What film is that from?
Misery Chastain cannot be dead. Hello, everyone.
Oh, hi.
So we're going to do horror movies today. But we thought...
What do you mean we're going to do horror
We're going to talk
movies?
about horror movies. It's almost Halloween. So horror movies it is. But we decided not to talk about movies older than sort of 20 years back.
Everybody knows like the main ones that everyone talks about, and that's boring, but I feel
We'd
like...
be here all night.
I feel like there's a lot of horror movies. What we're going to do, say from like the last 10, 20
We're
years?
going to say last 20 years. Going forward with this video, spoilers, spoiler alert. I feel like we're in a horror movie renaissance at the moment because for a very long time horror movies were sort of painting by numbers. It was so boring, it was all the same shit. And it was all the same kind of, what's the word, like blueprint. And it was jump scares. And I think now at the moment we're sort of coming into a renaissance.
Recently, it seems to be like very, very strong.
More creative.
Yes.
It's less of the sort of boring found footage shit. But anyway, having said that, there are some real corkers from the last 20 years.
Also, I kind of love found footage if it's done
well. I love it. The worst thing about found footage is when they spend so long explaining why it's found footage. Like, we understand that that's the deal. But let's start with sort of the best one I think on our list.
No particular order.
I'm going to start with the Blair Witch Project.
Okay, love
because
the Blair Witch
that has got to
Project.
be one of my favourite movies regardless of genre. I think it was so clever. Everyone knows the sort of facts and figures. It was so super low budget. It was the most sort of profit and return or whatever. It was so different and gripping and immersive.
It really started that trend of the whole found footage genre. It was very...
It wasn't the first, but it certainly was the one that sort of everyone paid attention to. And there are so many moments that I think back to that are constantly in movies. We watched a movie last night, didn't we? The Taking of Deborah Logan.
Which I also liked.
It was cute, it was good, but I feel like that borrowed really heavily. And I think a lot of movies do, because it's such a good setup. It's very claustrophobic.
It's very clever because it's one of those movies where it just plays on your own imagination. You never actually see the Blair Witch. You never see this monster or villain. It's just the idea that she's there.
And that's scarier.
Yeah.
To this day, no one knows what the Blair Witch looks like, if she even existed. I mean, I think she did. The whole mythology, and it's all very patchy and no one's quite sure what's what. There are some stories you can't really piece it all together. But that kind of in your mind, mindworm sort of thing, is what a lot of movies... It's a mindworm. The sequel was called Book of Shadows. It was actually a movie as opposed to being found footage.
Oh, that was crap.
And it was very low budget, but I like the storyline because it really sort of goes in on that idea of the Blair Witch makes you do stuff rather than she does anything herself. My favourite movie for years was The Ring. And again, regardless of genre, I could watch that all day long.
The Japanese know how to do their horror movies. Like, fuck me, that seems scary shit.
I'm going to be controversial though and say that I prefer the American one. I think the Japanese one's amazing, obviously. I think a lot of people are quick to say it's amazing because they just want to be arty-farty.
I think the Japanese one's scarier.
I never found it as scary. I always thought it was slightly low budget, but maybe that's because
but that's why I think it's scarier, because it is not quite as polished.
Maybe.
I find it scarier.
I deconstructed the American one so much, so I think by the time I actually watched the Japanese one, it wasn't as sort of, shocking for me. But that mythology as well is so good. And I read last night that they're doing a third American one. The Ring 2 was a pile of shit, but I loved it.
Did they do a third
You don't remember The Ring 2? That was not your fucking mind.
Oh no, I do remember.
So good.
Did they do a Japanese third one?
They did a Japanese prequel which was called Ring Zero. And I always love thinking about the fact that on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't think there's any other movie that has this, the Ring on Rotten Tomatoes is 100% and Ring 2 is 0%. That's the difference in, Ring 2, the Japanese one was shite, and the Ring 0 was even more bizarre. It was called Birthday and she was like a little girl. It's so bloody bizarre. Let's talk about a recent one that we love, The Babadook.
Oh my gosh, this is probably one of my favourite films of all time. That's hard.
It was so fresh.
Obsessed with that
so
film.
fresh. It really just pared everything back and it was all about the story. There were some jump scares, there were some elements of horror we've seen before, but it was so fresh.
Creative, because more than anything it was a psychological film. It was a
drama.
It was exploring the mind of a mother who has lost her lover.
Kind of a bitch.
And she is struggling with the idea that she doesn't love her child the way that she knows she should do, and it's such an interesting, controversial
because,
topic.
you know, Dark Water, The Ring, there's so many horror movies that explore that mother-parent, you know, type, what's the word?
But this really is, you only have like the two characters for most of the film.
And the actual villain, the villain itself is a metaphor, or it could be. There's so many ways you can sort of interpret it.
Physical representation of all of the dark
and it's scary shit, especially when we paused it and we turned up the contrast
brightness
and we saw the actor's face, and that shit wasn't good. So you should definitely watch The Babadook. The bird that played the mum was sick. Another one I think is very worth noting at the moment is the Insidious franchise.
That is so good.
Minus the third one.
I liked the third one. Why didn't you like the third one?
I thought the third one offered nothing new. It was a money maker, and it's like Paranormal Activity 3. It's nothing new. It was shit.
I haven't seen Paranormal Activity 3, but I really liked Insidious 3.
I thought the Insidious idea is, again, it's something that people are sort of, you know, tapping into because it's familiar, but at the same time, it's such a new concept.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I think Patrick Wilson is great.
I think he's disgusting.
I think I would just spread him on toast. And also, you know who's great in that movie is Lynn Shay. She plays, what's the name of the woman?
I think the second one is better than the first one. I really like the second one.
The second one offered so much more.
The second one's brilliant.
For when you're watching the first one. So she played Elise. Elise, that's her name. You should, if you've not seen Insidious, it's terrifying, and it really does sort of get in your mind. And there's a timeline. It's like Paranormal Activity is actually. They're from the same makers.
There's Bloomhouse.
It's a timeline that jumps
there is an overarching
forwards.
storyline, which I
clever.
really like.
It's clever. So Paranormal Activity, whilst we're on the subject, I loved it.
I absolutely loved it. I've only seen the first two, and whilst the second one is basically just the first one.
But it offers more of the timeline.
It progresses the storyline. So whilst the actual film technically is very, very similar, it does progress the storyline. It is still scary.
Paranormal Activity really divided people. Did you guys like Paranormal? Tell us about it.
I think it's genius.
If you thought it was scary. I thought the scariest part of that, the first one, was when it's some random night and you're sort of seeing it and they're asleep and there's nothing for like a minute, and then all of a sudden you hear the demon go, KG. And that's it. I shit myself. I was watching it on my own.
I know it's like a really iconic thing, but to this day I hate it just when her leg just starts getting pulled out of the bed.
And when the Ouija board sets alight. Another one we watched recently is Oculus.
That's also Bloomhouse.
That's Bloomhouse as well. See, Bloomhouse is just churning them out. There's probably a lot of shit as well.
Yeah, for every good one they have a shite film. But I don't mind that.
Oculus is one of those ones where you go in thinking it's going to be
was such
shit.
A creative idea.
That was so ingenious. And I can't even remember it now because there's so much to it. But
it was this mirror.
There's a mirror in it, scary mirror.
I think it was a haunted. Was the mirror actually haunted, or was it the idea that the mirror was an entity in itself? I don't know if there was there someone in the mirror?
I can't remember. I really can't remember much about it, but
it basically drives you.
It drives you crazy
and it makes you kill yourself.
The main actress, I thought she did a great job, and it's so. I love a movie where
it was the Ginger bird from Doctor Who.
She was Ginge. I love a movie where there's a bad ending, where there's a tragic ending, there's no happy ending.
And when it just makes you feel
dread,
uneasy and horrible
afterwards. I think a brilliant movie in that vein is The Skeleton Key, because the ending is so bleak. Do you remember that one?
Is that the one
where they're in the bayou with Kate Hudson?
Oh yeah, that was good.
When you find out that the maid...
What is it she keeps saying to herself at the end when she's in the attic or something? She keeps repeating.
I don't believe! I don't believe! And the mirror comes towards her and you find out that it's like the maid and the butler dude, or the two servants.
Don't give out a massive big spoiler. I know we said spoiler there, but shit.
Listen, so The Skeleton Key, you gotta see, it's brilliant. And Gina Rowland's in that and she's fantastic. So apparently we don't stop talking ever. This video is going to be 300 hours long, so there's going to be a part 2. Puffins, how cute! So please look out for that.